I'm kind of a student of personality style and temperament and how those things have direct impact on interaction and relationships. And there's I don't know, dozens and dozens of ways to look at that and interpret it and study it. There are complex things like the Myers-Briggs. You got 16 personality types there. There's the Enneagram. It's got 9 different things on a wheel, and there's interplay of next to and opposite, and there's the Taylor Johnson temperament analysis, and it's it's complex. I mean, I've gotten certified for that one, and it's complex. I These complex ways of looking at personality are, I mean, they're not made complex just to be complex. It's partly because temperament and personality is a complex thing. But I'm a simple guy, and I like the simple stuff. My favorite way of helping people explore their personality and temperament is a tool that was created by John Townsend and Gary Smalley. Was it John Townsend? Oh gosh. Now, well, see, my temperament is I'm getting older and I forget stuff. Gary Smalley is primarily the guy I got it from, and he came up with these 4 basic styles, or types is too tight of a framework, but there's the lion, the beaver, the otter, and the golden retriever. And maybe someday I'll talk about them. I enjoy talking about them, and people that I share this with. It's such a simple way, and it makes a ton of sense, but not today. What I will say is the outstanding quality of the golden retriever is, if you've ever been around golden retrievers, it makes sense. The quality is faithfulness. I have a daughter who is a wonderful golden retriever. Oh my gracious, is she ever faithful? If you're a friend of hers, you are, I mean, that's a big blessing. She will do whatever she can to help take care of you. That's part of the faithfulness thing. Well, faithfulness is an emerging theme here in 3rd John. He talks about let's go back to verse 3. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it, which is another, I mean, that's just a reiteration of this faithfulness. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in truth. And that's another way of saying faithful to the truth. And then in verse 5, he writes, dear friend, you are faithful in what you were doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they're strangers to you. Faithful. And I mentioned last time that if I have a epitaph, which I don't anticipate having, but what I hope people, one of the things at least, that people will remember about me after my passing is just the one word, faithful. Faithful. Not perfect. And that's not what John's implying here either. He's not saying, well, bud, you have been perfect. You've not made any mistakes. You've just completely and absolutely followed the way of Christ. That's not the point of faithfulness. See, perfection is not, I suppose, I waffle on this idea of perfection. Part of me wants to say, you can't be perfect. Why don't you quit trying? I mean, that's like saying, grow a 3rd ear. Come on, be more intentional about it and think more about ears. And I mean, you can do any number of things. You're not going to grow a third ear. It's just not possible. Perfection. Work harder to be more perfect. I don't see the payoff in that. I just don't see perfection as a possibility until we are made perfect. And ultimately, that'll happen after my death. That's when I'll wake up in the arms of Jesus, perfected, finally perfected. Not by what I've done, but by what he has done in me and for me, and then finally with me. And yet there's this other side of, if perfection is not your goal, how do you come up with anything excellent in your life? As though you're never going to achieve this, but it's worth shooting for. And there's some truth in that. Here's for me an encouraging thing about faithfulness. Faithfulness is not about perfect. Faithfulness is about, no, wait for it, faithfulness. I am not full of faith. I long to be. I have this very ebbing and flowing level of faith in my life. And I think that's because I'm human. There was one who was truly full of faith. He was also full of grace and full of truth. He was full of faith. And that was Jesus. I'm not him. Neither are you. But for me to be faithful, for you to be faithful, full of faith, there's got to be room in my life and intention toward this faith thing. Now that presents a conundrum for me. Can you try harder to trust better? Because trying and trusting, trusting is not the result of trying, but trying is the result of trusting. My head is I'm starting to get a headache. What do we do with this? Okay, here's my thought. Faithfulness, this quality, is an expression of God's work in my life and my cooperation with him as he shapes, fashions, forms the image and nature of Jesus in me. This shaping, it will never be accidental. It will never be unintentional. You see, my life is shaped intentionally by God, and my partnership with him is rarely, if ever, accidental. I have to have intention about my partnership with God as he shapes me to be like Jesus. It's conjecture, but when John talks to his dear friend, Gaius, he says, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters. I look at that and think, all right, faithfulness is an expressed quality. Faithful people demonstrate their faithfulness. Okay, I don't know, I'm in a mood for this, but I'm not talking about proving to me that you're faithful. No, I'm talking about show your faithfulness by your behavior. That's somehow, in my mind, not the same thing as prove to me. I'm not. I don't have a right to judge you. I do have the privilege of observing you, and I draw conclusions from my observation. So yeah, maybe that's judging. I don't want it to be. I don't intend my life to be taken up with judgmentalism, but I do think a wise person is very observant of the world and the people around them. So, all right, keep going, Steve. You are faithful in what you were doing for the brothers and sisters. What? And then he goes on, he says, even though they're strangers to you. So what is Gaius doing? Well, word has gotten back to John, and he talks about it in verse 6. They, the brothers and sisters who have benefited from Gaius and his faithfulness, they have told the church about your love. This is, wow. What was there? Gaius had a reputation in the church. Now, John could, there's at least a couple of possibilities here. John could be referring to the church in its broadest sense of all the members of God's family, or it could be the congregation that John is serving, which is not in the same location as Gaius at the moment of the writing of this letter. I don't know that it matters, but they have told the church about what? Your love. Nothing, in my experience, expresses faithfulness more than or better than love. And love is a feeling. There's emotion attached to love, but there's also behavior attached to love. And I think the reason why Gaius had this reputation, a strong enough reputation that the people who had encountered him, when they talked about him to the church, they talked about his love. I think his behaviors, he demonstrated his love. And okay, let's look about it. Take some deeper looks in it. John goes on, please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. That makes me think that the context for Gaius expressing and demonstrating love to these folks is that and these are folks that he didn't even know, he had brought them into the hospitality of his home. He had taken care of them. He'd housed them, fed them, encouraged and worked with, loved them. This is an art. I believe that hospitality is one of the gifts that God gives various of his people. One of my daughters has hospitality as a gift. She just loves helping people feel at home in her home and just, well, anybody's got a gift of hospitality. If you do, it's easy to spot them, right? They just, now here's the other side of that. I do not have the gift of hospitality. I have to think intentionally, and I have to be I have to plan to be hospitable. Not my daughter. It just, like, that's breathing for her. And here's the other thing. As she does it, she gets energy from it. She gets life from it. For me, when I'm having to take care of people, it's enjoyable to me, but I'm tired. It wears me down. Okay. I think Gaius had shown hospitality to these strangers. And then John says, send them on their way in a manner that honors God. That is worth coming back to next time. Think about two things. Hospitality with strangers, and then second thing, sending them on their way in a manner that honors God. We're going to come back to that and see what we can conjecture, pull out of it, see in it next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.